I'm a great one for modifying rod handles, match rod handles, and I like to put this cork hood onto the Fuji fittings, which are only about 18 or 19 millimeters in diameter, to get the diameter up to around about 28 millimeters. That's what suits my hands. If I try and use the narrow one, I can use it, the reel will be secure, but I end up with a cramp across the back of my hand, and lots of other people get the same thing. So how do you get this cork hood, which the top piece of the reel fitting will screw underneath as you tighten up on the foot of the reel there? How do you do that? You're going to need some tools and some Araldite, rough Araldite, or cheap versions from like B&Q. And you need obviously some corks. You need some files and a round file, maybe a round rasp, a modelling knife with a very sharp blade. I've got some Swan Morton ones. A Stanley knife is quite useful. You need something to drill a hole through the cork, and that needs to be off centre, and I'm going to show you how that's done. And I've made my own cork borer from a piece of old aluminium landing net handle and just cut teeth into it, although it blunts fairly quickly. So you're going to need some corks, and up till now what I've been doing is buying corks in small quantities from home brew suppliers. I used to be able to get them in Wimborne Market, which doesn't exist anymore, and there's a local firm in Wimborne that does home brew equipment. But failing that, a friend of mine has given me a whole bag of Prosecco corks, and when you get corks that have been uncorked from wine bottles or whatever, they've got compressed quite hard to get them into the neck of the bottle, and you want them to go back more or less to how they were to start with. And to do that you need to steam them, and to steam them you need a shallow dish with maybe 1/8 of an inch of water. Put boiling water in, put the corks in the microwave, give it a minute, have a look at the corks, see how they're getting on, are they coming back to shape, and then keep giving it sort of 10 or 20 seconds, keep checking. It's only going to take 2 or 3 minutes to do this until they're like these, and they're more or less parallel to how they should be, and that's what we want. We want something that's about 28, 29, 30 millimeters. These are just over 30 millimeters. And if you do buy home brew ones, you want the ones that are they're probably tapered, and they're sort of 30 to 35 or 28 to 33 taper, and you'll need 3 of these. There's more than enough cork there to do the bit on the rod. The rod I'm going to fix in this video is a Normark number 2 quiver. Originally it had sliding rings. I put a Fuji screw down fitting on. This blank's a bit thick for these, and I could only get it down so far, so I've ended up with a gap. I would have preferred it to come down an inch or 2 more, but that's how it is. And I'm going to put some cork on there. This rod's all right to fish with as a ledger rod. It's not the same as trotting, but just for demonstration it will do fine. So the next stage is to bore the corks, and I'll show you how I do that. I've now got to the stage where I need to fit these corks, these 2 corks that I've got. I've cut them down a bit, so the total length is 8 centimeters, 80 millimeters, and I've opened up the bit for the hood, and I've opened up the other end to go over the thicker piece here. So I should be ready and that's ready to be glued. I need to check how tight that is on there. Check it with a reel that it will fit under, that when the reel seat is when the reel foot, check it with a reel when the reel foot is actually on the rod, that this will tighten, and you don't want this bit gripping it, so that needs to loosen up a bit more. Probably need to push that back a bit further, and you can see we're starting to get something that's going to be a handle there. Not too bad. So the next stage, just do a little bit more fettling on these two bits and then Araldite them on, check with the reel, and we're ready to just shape it after that. When I'm putting the corks in, it's important to put a reel onto the rod to make sure that this bit, when we turn it inside and out, goes on. That's quite tight round there. I need to shave inside that with a modelling knife. I've got a Swan Morton modelling knife, very sharp. Just get it right. That probably needs to sit down a bit more as well. Need to open it up inside there to get that to push down properly. And then we're ready for gluing. It is a question of just playing around with it until you're happy before you glue it. You don't want to be finding it wrong afterwards, because it's hard to open up these things. Open up inside the cork on the hood once it's glued on there. Much easier when I can still take that off and work on it. For the final stage, I've now got the corks glued on quite securely onto the handle here. This seems to work up there. Might need a little bit of fettling with a razor blade. So the final stage is to start filing. I need to get this down, to taper it, get it even. It's not very even there. And you need to be a bit careful. Don't want to damage the bits of the handle, though that's only, we can probably peel that back actually, because there's only tape underneath there, so we can take that back. And for this I've got a file that's a rasp on one side and a file on the other, and you just start filing away. I've got a bowl here to catch the stuff, and it is just a matter of going away with it. It's quite soft. And especially around this front bit, got to be careful on the hood. Just working all the way around, nice and even. Don't get too carried away. It's a steady process, and you just carry on until you're happy with how it is. And at the back, smoothing the sides down. When you've got it roughly how you want it, you can start to use the file side, make it much smoother instead of rough. Certainly got to be quite careful with the rasp. It's powerful stuff. You cut through it very easily. As you go along, just see how that feels. That's still a bit big really, but you can get the general drift of it. One thing you need to do is these corners here at the front is to just cut them through with a, just clip the corner off with a scalpel. I don't know if you can see that fairly tight, and do the other side as well. And also along these edges, just straighten that out a bit, because it won't be and then just continue to file away. And you're trying to get that profile nice and smooth, nice and comfortable. And that's really getting very comfortable now. Just push that back. We should be able to test it with a reel. And there we have it, pretty good. So that's the final result. We've got the reel on there, and that will come undone as well. Nice and smooth. 2 corks. Cost a little bit of time. It hasn't taken very much longer than the length of this video. There's very little left out. And it's done. The longest bit was waiting for the glue to set properly, and I've left it overnight for that. What I usually do, especially with the float rods, is do this first sanding down and then fish with them and just see if there's any bits that need a bit more sanding down. I can see that when this reel is tight, it's bulging out a little bit there, so I'll probably just file those down a bit more. And job done. The great thing about this cork is that if you ever change your mind or want to sell the rod, you can peel this cork off with a Stanley knife. You need to be careful, but it will pop off, and you can clean the glue off and it can go back to how it was. Bear in mind, any rod that I've ever owned is likely to have been modified in some way or other, and won't be in pristine condition, but fishing rods are for fishing with. Use and abuse them. I do look after them. I try not to break them, but I do like to modify them to be exactly how I want. So that's it for this one. Any questions, please ask. And until next time, it's goodbye for now.